I once heard a quote by Peter Crone that said, "Relationships aren't here to make us happy, but to reveal where we are not yet free." I want you to let that land for a moment. Because somewhere along the way, we have all been sold a lie that tells us that love is supposed to be like a fairy tale, that our partners are here to complete us, and that finding the one will actually make our lives better and more easy. But the true reality is that relationships aren't designed to keep us comfortable. They're designed to awaken us, to help us grow and evolve. They are here as spiritual contracts, as sacred assignments, as mirrors reflecting back our deepest wounds, insecurities, and triggers. They show us where we still abandon, reject, and betray ourselves, where we still seek safety and security outside of us, and where our inner child is yearning to be seen, held, and fully chosen. Here's the thing. This isn't always comfortable. This actually can be deeply confronting. And most of us, we believe we desire conscious relationships until they begin to reveal the unconscious parts of ourselves. And in this video, I'm going to break down what is the higher purpose of relationships, attachment wounds and how they show up in love, why you keep repeating the same patterns and attracting the same people, and how triggers can be opportunities and invitations for healing, and how you can truly create soul-aligned relationships rooted in freedom, not in fear. And if this message resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment below. What have been some of the greatest lessons you've learned in your own relationships? Let's get started. Peace and prosperity to you. And today I am so excited to dive into the true nature of relationships. Now, as someone who has experienced several different relationships over the years, I can tell you firsthand that relationships truly are vehicles for spiritual growth and transformation. Now, of course, I didn't always know this or even believe this to be true early on. Most of my life, I spent seeking relationships to complete me, to make me happy, to fill me up. That is because I was still insecure and felt inadequate within myself. And I'm sure you can relate to this. All of the times that you seeked a partner out, to find that sense of wholeness, to have someone fully love you because you didn't fully love yourself. This is extremely common. And most of our relationships, all of our relationships are approached from the lens of our wounded child, the child within us who didn't get the love, the belonging, the acceptance that he or she desired, and therefore then repeats these patterns within the relationships as they get older. And it's our most intimate relationships that are truly mirrors, that are truly deep-seated teachers and catalysts, helping us to recognize more of our own wholeness, more of our own love. Yet, there really isn't a blueprint on how to do this and how to navigate this realm. Hence why I wanted to make this video and share from this deeply personal place. I can remember early on, especially some of my early relationships when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, and what these relationships were actually revealing to me. And I remember one of my first serious relationships that lasted about a year and a half. I was dating this girl at the time, and in this relationship, there was a lot of emotional turmoil. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of discharge on her part. And really, I began to take on all of what she was projecting onto me as my own, as someone that is deeply and highly sensitive. And it really began to reflect as, of course, I got out of that relationship and looked back on it. It reflected back my relationship that I had with my mother early on in my life. And it was showing me all of these things within myself. And through that, I actually began directly after that relationship, I began to develop psoriasis all over my skin, all over my body, my elbows, my knees, my thighs. And as I began to process this, as I began to dive deep within myself over the years, I recognized that I was putting up these boundaries and barriers to try and protect myself from others. And so this was the first seeding of a very serious relationship in my life. And fortunately, I broke that pattern early on and didn't repeat that same pattern. But over the course of the years that would follow, I had other things that would show up because, again, relationships are mirrors, they are accelerators for our own evolution. And they begin to reveal our own attachment wounds, right? There's these four attachment styles. There's secure, which is very rare to find unless we had very conscious, connected parents. There's anxious, there's avoidant, there's disorganized, there's anxious, avoidant together. And I would say that I fell into the categories of anxious and avoidant. Whereas if there was conflict coming at me or there was some level, someone wanted to have a deep talk with me, I felt this anxiety like everything was going to fall apart. And that can be related back to when at 10 years old, when my parents sat my sister and I down and said that we are getting a divorce. That was one of the hardest conversations I've ever been a part of. And I remember locking myself in my room for 2 days straight, not coming out, and just feeling all of this grief to see my parents coming to this point where they were leaving each other. And so there was this anxiety that began to manifest anytime a partner wanted to have a hard conversation. Or I would go the other way and just avoid the hard conversation overall. I would avoid my own emotions and my own feelings. And so again, we can look directly at our childhood imprinting, our childhood conditioning, programming, all of the things we experiencing, the wounding, the trauma, and how that then manifests and shows up in our intimate relationships early on. So all of our childhood bonding shapes our adult intimacy patterns and the patterns that show up. And, oftentimes, as a result of being whether anxious, avoidant, disorganized, we begin to have these patterns of emotional reactivity where we become defensive or protective. And anytime, something shows up, we want to protect ourselves from getting hurt, from feeling that heartbreak we felt early on. And this is why having awareness about what attachment styles are playing out in our relationship is extremely important to our own personal healing and harmony. And that through the lens of a relationship, we can begin to rewrite that over time. But it does take a level of consciousness, a level of awareness where we can look deeply within ourselves to see where all of this is playing out. And the first most important part of all of this is to take radical responsibility and ownership for ourselves and to realize that we are not the victim of another, that we either consciously or unconsciously chose this person to be in relationship with, whether for a short amount of time, a month, few months, a year, a couple years, or for a long term. No matter what we chose this to reflect back a deeper part of ourselves. And this person isn't to blame. Now, of course, it makes it a lot easier when the other person is also taking responsibility for themselves. But all in all, the shadows that show up in relationships are opportunities to heal deeper and to reveal more gifts. And so when we stop playing the victim and placing blame on the other, and we begin to take that radical responsibility to become honest with ourselves, that's when our healing begins to accelerate. And it very much may mean that we vibrate out of the reality of another, because the way in which we attract and we magnetize partners in our lives is for, again, our own healing and where we are at within ourselves at that current time, energetically, from a standpoint of frequency. What are we sharing out or projecting out into the collective field? And then what is being attracted and magnetized into our field? It is always going to reflect back what is happening deep within us, because reality is created from the inside out. And so, why do we keep attracting the same patterns? Why do we keep repeating these same patterns and attracting the same people? It's because we hold these subconscious beliefs that we aren't enough, that we aren't good enough, that we have these deep rooted beliefs about love, about safety, about our own worth. And that most of the time we are bringing forth what feels familiar to us. So really what we need to do is to look at our relationship with our mother and our father. What were some of the behaviors, the patterns that were playing out with both our mother and our father? Then we can begin to see what cycles we are looping in. And when we begin to bring forgiveness to our mother, to our father, and we begin to reparent ourselves through the lens of our own inner child and bring that child what he or she needed at that time. And we can break that down to a couple things. It's love and belonging. When we can give that back to ourselves, that's when we begin to align and draw in a higher frequency or a higher caliber of relationships. But no relationships are necessarily bad or wrong. They are what we are attracting at that time based on what we need to heal. Now, I am not going to sit here and say that anybody should be a victim of, abuse or manipulation or all of these things. But if that is in your reality, you can ask yourself a very tough question. Why am I attracting this into my life? I can guarantee you, if you go back far enough, you will find that there is some level of unconscious belief about yourself that is playing out. And then, of course, it's taking a stand in that moment and, if needed, to leave that relationship and to do that deeper inner work on yourself. And by doing that, you shift your frequency to attract and magnetize healthier partners and begin to exemplify healthier patterns that are playing out in those relationships. And so, if you are ready to create a soul aligned relationship, here are the 5 keys to doing so. Number 1, self-awareness and inner healing. This is all the things that I've been talking about so far, but you can only meet another as deeply as you have met yourself. Soul-aligned relationships begin with knowing your wounds, your patterns, your desires, your boundaries. And the more you heal your inner child and unconscious beliefs around love, the more magnetic and harmonious your relationships become. Number 2, emotional responsibility. Taking ownership for your triggers, your emotions, and your reactions is absolutely essential. Soul-aligned relationships isn't about blaming or fixing each other. It's about using every challenge as an opportunity for growth. Number 3, energetic alignment over ego attachment. So many of us, we have this attachment to having someone fulfill us, having someone make us happy and joyful, but all of that can only come within ourselves. And so when we begin to fill ourselves up, to feel that deep level of abundance and wholeness within us, then we can truly magnetize all of what we desire and so much more. Number 4, shared values, vision, and spiritual growth. You've probably been in the situation where surface level attraction begins to fade and all of that chemistry. And it's because, yes, you might have a powerful charge in that physical charge, but underneath all of that, when we truly want to have a meaningful relationship, we need something deeper. That physical passion and chemistry is absolutely important. But beyond that, is there soul alignment built on shared values, deeper mission, and commitment to evolving together, a devotion to the altar of love, where you are supporting each other's expansion and not contraction, and that your growth is parallel to another, and that both parties within the relationship can begin to take ownership for their own shadows and so forth. And number 5, love rooted in freedom, not in fear. Real love isn't about possession. It's not about control. It's not about dependency. It's about choosing each other freely again and again without needing to fulfill a void. There's space for individuality and individual expression, and sovereignty and connection. And so by following these 5 keys, and really, if you were to do anything that I shared in this video, going through these 5 keys is extremely important to creating that soul aligned relationship that you desire. Now, again, that relationship, even though it may be highly evolved and at a higher caliber or frequency, it does not mean it's going to be easy. There will inevitably be challenges and experiences that come up within that relationship. But the more conscious you can become of what is showing up in that relationship, the easier and more effortless it becomes. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this message lands for you. And if it does, and if it did, I would ask you to just hit the subscribe button below. And again, leave a comment. Let me know what you feel. Let me know what is coming up for you as a result of feeling into what I shared today. And I can't wait to see you soon on my next video. I'll talk to you later. Peace.